Thank you very much, Mike, for those very, very gracious remarks. I particularly like the reference to the honorary degrees, but as my grandfather liked to say, honors do not come without a price. As you know, many of you know, if you get a call that some organization wants to make you the man or woman of the year, or give you an award, certainly in the business world, the first thing that goes through our mind is, how many tables is this going to cost? and in honorary degrees, you know, a lot of new dormitories and swimming pool, you know, it's honor's not the price. But it is a great honor to be here tonight, especially in the first state, since that was the first state that ever voted for me in your first primary. Also, tonight, unlike most of you here tonight, my dinner was free. So I'm very grateful. And it is good fun to see a lot of old friends, Mike and Jane. Also, the Toozes are here, who are good friends with our daughter Elizabeth. Why don't they stand up? They're not from politics, but stand up and be recognized. Basil Battaglia, who was chairman when I was running in '96. Of course, George and Fairfax Herring, who played a key role in my '96 campaign. Very, very grateful for them. George got me here from Wilmington train station in one piece, so I'm very, very grateful. Thank you, George. Thank you, Fairfax. Other friends like Vance Phillips and others. It is great fun to be here. And this election, make no mistake, I'm backing a candidate and I'll talk about him in a moment, but make no mistake, this election is the most important this country's had since 1980, when Ronald Reagan won and fundamentally changed the course of this country. None of you are old enough to remember what it was like in this country in the 1970s, stagnation, inflation, foreign policy in disarray, the Soviet Union, which then existed, seeming to be on the ascent, not descent, military rundown, many of our troops' family getting food stamps because budgets were so tight. America was seen as in a moral decline. America was seen as a malaise. It was a terrible time, but leadership made the difference. Ronald Reagan determined to do something that few experts thought possible, and that is win the Cold War. Not just keep up with the Soviets, but win the thing. And eventually, we did it. He turned around the economy, major tax cuts, deregulation. America went from a lagging economy to a leading economy. I hate to give out statistics, but we went from about a third of the global economy in terms of capital to half. Our share of the global GDP market went up from about a quarter to over a third. A remarkable performance. And most fundamentally, we became an innovative nation again. Silicon Valley rose up. We led the world instead of lagging the world. Now, we've been living off of that legacy. Where do we go now? Almost every fundamental issue is now on the table. And if you listen to any of these debates, yes, a lot of them are boring, but you can get a real sense of the divide between the two parties. On national security, are we going to retreat and hope the world leaves us alone? Or are we going to remain on offense? We can debate about how we should fight this thing, but make no mistake, if America does not take the lead, no one else will. Now, on the domestic front, you see it on taxes. We want to cut them and simplify them. The other side wants to raise them. You see it in health care. We want to have patients in charge. We want to make fundamental reforms. The other side wants to do what Europe now knows is a failure, have government controls one way or the other. You see it in Social Security. You see it in energy. You see it in trade, as Mike mentioned. That party's become more and more protectionist. And all you have to do, ladies and gentlemen, to see where that can lead is go back to 1929, 1930. Devastating piece of protectionist legislation called Smoot-Hawley, major contributor to the global economic disaster which led to the Second World War. Reducing barriers is the key to prosperity, not erecting them. So we have these very, very fundamental differences. And the Republican Party, like Ronald Reagan, has got to look forward to the future, not harp to the past. And while the Democrats talk about change, it is change going backwards. Failed policies, stale policies, high taxes, socialist policies. They don't work. That's all they can offer. They call it change, but it is fundamentally the wrong kind of change. Even Western Europe, supposedly old Europe, is moving away from that failed model that the three candidates of the Democrats want to foist on us in 2009. So this is a fundamental election. And talking about taxes, well, I'm not going to move to Delaware, but I want to move your tax regime to New Jersey. That's the thing we need now. And Mike, when he was governor, played a key role in making Delaware a magnet instead of pushing people out. Thank you again, Mike. Before I talk about my favorite candidate, let me just say a word about something that's uppermost on our minds. You heard it on Friday with the roiling in the financial markets. People are wondering what is going on, what is happening with our economy. And the fundamentals of the U.S. economy, even though you never know it, are truly sound. For all the problems that we have, step back for a moment and put things in perspective. In the last 4.5 years, for example, the growth of the American economy, just the expansion alone, exceeded the entire size of the Chinese economy. We grew China in 4 years. Now, obviously, their growth rates are higher, but they're coming off of a much lower base. So even though we do have a lot of challenges and problems right now, I guarantee you there's not a country around the world that wouldn't gladly change places with us today. Now, what is happening in terms of the credit markets? Why is this subprime crisis, which exploded last summer, why is it like walking pneumonia, bad cold, we can't shake the thing? Are we headed for a recession? Well, no mistake, the economy is slowing down. We'll slow in the first quarter. But fundamental mistakes are not made in Washington. There's no reason why in this spring this economy shouldn't start to grow again in real terms. What has happened with the subprime crisis, even though the numbers are huge, what has happened there is not the size of the potential losses, even though they will number up in the hundreds of billions. Wall Street, in a bad week like it had last week, loses more than what's going to be lost in the subprime thing at the end of the day. Put it in perspective. First of all, in productivity, the United States, even though the numbers fluctuate from quarter to quarter, the U.S. is in a productivity boom. Productivity in this decade has increased to twice the level it did in the 1990s, which is the foundation for more and future prosperity. In terms of balance sheets, corporate balance sheets overall in America are in very good shape. Never before this late in an expansion has corporate America had so much cash proportionally as it has on the balance sheets today. Take out short-term debt, still about $2 trillion, not billion, trillion dollars. And the American consumer, portrayed as addicted to debt, living from credit card to credit card, an image reinforced by the subprime crisis. Even though we have a credit crisis, many people are facing the loss of their homes. Overall, household balance sheets in America are in very, very good shape. If you take what the American people own in stocks, bonds, bank CDs, variable annuities, fixed annuities, 401ks, life insurance policies, all their financial assets, add them up, and then subtract out what the American people owe on their credit cards, subtract out their other forms of indebtedness, subtract out what they owe on their mortgages, and don't even count the value of their homes. Just treat the mortgage as straight debt. So you have financial assets, financial liabilities, you subtract the liabilities from the assets, and American households are plus $30 trillion. The American people have more savings than the rest of the world put together.